greatest tragedy in love isn't betrayal, or even a sudden, fiery end. It's a silence, a delay. It's a love that shows up precisely 1 second too late. Welcome back to Dear Avoidant. For years, my research has focused on the architecture of emotional distance, the walls we build, the space we crave. But the most devastating discovery is this: avoidant individuals don't lack love. They lack the ability to feel it on time. They are emotionally cursed to live in a perpetual state of retrospection. The depth of their care, the intensity of their longing, the desperate need for you. It all surfaces only when your car is already halfway down the driveway, when the key is no longer on the hook, and when your heart has finally accepted the peace of moving on. This isn't a story about people who don't care. It's a deep dive into a psychological defense mechanism that creates a lifelong pattern of loss. A pattern where love is always filed under found after loss. We're going to break down the science of this emotional delay, explore why a secure relationship doesn't help them open up, and share the untold stories of what happens inside an avoidant's mind when they finally wake up. By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand why the timing of love is the most painful, heartbreaking aspect of this attachment style. Trust me, you need to see this through to the final lesson. We must introduce the concept of emotional debt. While the conscious mind of the avoidant is maintaining distance, the deeper limbic system is faithfully recording every shared laugh, every late-night conversation, every quiet moment of connection. They are accumulating attachment bonds that are unacknowledged, uncelebrated, and unintegrated. This is the emotional debt. This accumulation creates a tragic paradox: proximity safety. Paradox. The partner believes that providing more safety, more patience, and more understanding will encourage the avoidant to open up. Psychologically, this often backfires. When the avoidant person feels completely secure, when they are not actively worried about losing the relationship, their emotional firewall has more energy available to focus on maintaining distance. The threat has been neutralized, so the defense mechanism strengthens its current posture. They become comfortable with the predictable pattern of the partner carrying the emotional weight. The safer they feel, the easier it is for them to hold the line of their independence. This is the psychological fuel for the partner's deepest frustration. The one thing they believe will help, unconditional stability, is actually enabling the avoidant's continued emotional suppression. The emotional debt remains suppressed until a critical event occurs. The relationship is threatened or lost. This is the psychological equivalent of a crisis protocol being initiated in the avoidant's nervous system. The defensive system has always performed a cost-benefit analysis. Is the pain of being vulnerable, vulnerability, less than the pain of being alone, loss? As long as the relationship is stable, the firewall answers, vulnerability is the greater threat. However, when the partner begins to disengage, move out, or definitively end the relationship, the entire equation flips. Threat matrix. Recalculation. The avoidant is no longer evaluating the current threat of intimacy. They are calculating the future cost of permanent loss. The emotional firewall, which was designed to prevent the pain of abandonment, a core childhood trauma, suddenly perceives that the very abandonment it was trying to prevent is imminent. The core defense mechanism becomes the very thing causing the threat. The emotional flood. The system immediately drops the firewall. All the accumulated, unacknowledged feelings, the emotional debt, are suddenly released into the conscious awareness. This isn't a trickle, it's a flood. The avoidant is overwhelmed by the true, unfettered depth of their love, their need, their panic, and their realization of the quality of the person they are losing. They are experiencing the emotions that their system successfully suppressed for months or years. This is why they describe it as waking up or seeing clearly for the first time. I want to share a story from a client I'll call Daniel, a 42-year-old successful architect, the classic dismissive avoidant. He had been with Sarah, a highly secure and patient partner, for 5 years. For 5 years, he had been emotionally adjacent to her life. He often traveled for work, using the distance as a justification for emotional disconnection. He'd call her too emotional for wanting a simple, "I miss you" text. He broke up with her, saying he felt stifled and just wasn't a relationship person. 3 weeks after the breakup, Sarah moved cross-country to take a new job. Daniel found himself on a 6-hour flight for a project, sitting next to an empty seat. Mid-flight, he instinctively reached into his bag for the book Sarah had gifted him, a tradition. It was in that moment, 35,000 feet in the air, with the physical distance matching his emotional distance, that the flood hit. He didn't just feel sad, he felt the 5 years of suppressed love. He realized she wasn't too emotional. She was just present and he was absent. He spent the entire flight writing her a 10-page letter, describing with perfect clarity every mistake, every missed opportunity, every moment he should have been there. The tragedy? By the time he landed, Sarah had changed her number and was already building a new life. His profound, genuine awakening was useless because the window of opportunity had closed. Psychological insight. Daniel's story illustrates that the avoidant needs the relationship to be irrevocably gone before the internal protective mechanism can drop its guard. The certainty of loss is the only thing more powerful than the fear of intimacy. The partner, exhausted by years of waiting, has undergone their own transformative process. They have moved from hope to acceptance to peace. When the avoidant finally returns with their late gift, their newfound emotional availability and commitment, they are offering it to a person who no longer exists. The partner's experience. The partner has exhausted their emotional reserves. They are not indifferent. They are simply empty. They have learned to prioritize their own needs and the peace of a predictable life. The avoidant's return is often met, not with joy, but with skepticism and exhaustion. The partner recognizes the sincerity, but cannot reinvest, because the pain of the cycle is too deeply etched. The emotional aftershocks. This late realization is often genuine and lasting. The avoidant is not performing. They have truly accessed a new emotional capacity. The pain of the final rejection, being rejected after they finally opened up, becomes a core wound. They now experience the full weight of both the loss and the self-blame for their delayed actions. Recovery for the avoidant is not about becoming less avoidant. It's about closing the gap of the emotional delay. The goal is to move from retrospective processing to real-time presence. Acceptance, not condemnation. The first step is to recognize that the emotional delay is a protective adaptation, not a character flaw. Self-condemnation only strengthens the defensive posture. The mantra must be, "This mechanism protected me then, but it is destroying my present now." Practicing micro-vulnerability. Instead of waiting for a big feeling, the avoidant must practice expressing muted or unclear emotions as they happen. If they feel a 1/10 warmth, they must voice the 1/10. "I am feeling comfortable right now," or "I am enjoying this time even if I don't feel overwhelming love." This practice rewires the nervous system by showing it that minor expressions of need or connection do not lead to catastrophe. The decide before you feel. Strategy. This is a crucial intervention. The avoidant should look at the tangible evidence of the relationship, e.g., this person is kind, stable, and committed, and choose to act in a committed way before the feeling of deep love fully arrives. The cognitive choice precedes the emotional access. You act as if the deep feeling is there, knowing it is processing in the background. For For those who love an avoidant, understanding the delay shifts the goal from demanding an emotional flood to recognizing a subtle tide. The search for subtle signals. Learn to look for behavioral reciprocity rather than verbal or highly expressive emotional reciprocity. A subtle sign of deeper connection might be consistent presence, remembering a small detail, or offering help without being asked. These are the avoidance love language during the suppression phase. Establishing your own boundaries and timeline. The partner must accept that their presence cannot fix the avoidance delay. They must set a healthy boundary. I will invest up to a certain point, but I will not put my life on hold for a feeling that may arrive too late. The partner must prioritize their own peace and emotional needs. We have traveled through the neurological roots of trauma, the painful psychology of emotional debt, and the devastating irony of the avoidance late-stage emotional awakening. This entire monumental discussion boils down to one simple, tragic truth. The final lesson for the avoidant: your biggest tragedy isn't that you can't love, it's that you love too late to save what you're losing. The pain of loss is the only thing powerful enough to drop your defenses, but by then, the only thing you have saved is the painful clarity of what you could have had. Your work is not to wait for the feeling, but to choose the action of commitment in the absence of certainty. You must make the cognitive choice that overrides your emotional lag. The final lesson for the partner: dear avoidant, you were right about the love, but wrong about the timing. The depth of the connection was real. The love was there, growing in the psychological shadows. The relationship's failure was not a judgment on your worth or your love, but a reflection of a fundamental, unsolvable problem of mismatched emotional timelines. Your closure comes from the understanding that you gave your all to a connection that was simply not yet available to receive it. You were ready to build, but your partner had not yet arrived at the construction site. Emotional timing matters just as much as emotional depth. Love that arrives too late can be just as destructive as love that never arrives at all. The cycle of loss, recognition, and late regret is a powerful anchor. Breaking it requires profound awareness, unwavering self-compassion, and the courage to finally choose presence over the illusion of safety.